The Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 versus the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Not a traditional comparison, certainly not a spec for spec comparison, more of a mindset comparison between these two devices because they are very different. And don't get me wrong, you've seen the videos on it, there's going to be more. I absolutely love the experience that I get with the Z Fold 5. It's my favorite foldable by far. I think it's the best software that you're going to get on a foldable device, certainly here in the United States. I love the experience of opening up that internal display and getting that wide canvas to look at content on. But I'm also capable of being honest with myself and knowing that at the end of the day, taking price into effect, taking how people actually are going to use the device into account, that the S23 Ultra is still going to be the best device and the most practical device for the vast majority of people. So before you get tempted by the Fold 5, before you look at it and just nice and shiny and you're seeing all the videos and how awesome that display is, just take stock in how, be honest with yourself and take stock in how you use a smartphone and whether you're going to be able to adapt your usage to something like a Z Fold, because it is quite different than what you're used to. So let's talk about what you get on an S23 Ultra. Performance, display, all the rest of that is going to be top-notch. It's got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. It's got the 120 hertz display. It's got the 2K display. It's just a beautiful, gorgeous OLED Samsung panel. You're going to get all of that. The one thing, though, is that you do get the S Pen in the device itself. And we're going to talk about S Pen functionality in a moment. But if you're somebody who looks at, let's say you were using an S23 Ultra, S22 Ultra, or an S21, which is a bad example, but say like a Note 20 Ultra, and you had the S Pen in the device, and you think, well, this has S Pen support. Why don't I go ahead, upgrade, get myself the gigantic screen, and still be able to use my S Pen? To me, it's different. To me, the difference between the S Pen being inside the device and having to carry around or have one of those cases on this device constantly of the external S Pen is a big difference. I personally would wind up losing it, getting frustrated with it, not wanting to carry it around or use it even less than I use the S Pen on the S23 Ultra. To me, it's not worth that trade-off. When this device, with probably the Fold 6, gets the S Pen inside the phone, then call me as far as S Pen functionality is concerned. So be honest with yourself there and say, hey, is the S Pen usage that I'm going to get out of this device something that I'd be able and I'd carry over that experience to the Fold 5? Then there's they changed the S Pen on the Fold 5. It's got that hard tip now. I don't know how the screen is going to hold up. These are still internal displays that are a little softer. They're still more delicate. It'll be interesting to see over the course of a year or longer if there are any marks on that internal display because of the harder tipped pen now on the S Pen for the Z Fold 5. The other thing is price. $1,200 less now. You could get some deals on it. $1,800. That's a significant difference, especially when you're talking about the difference that you're going to get. This is a gigantic display, and look at the size. A gigantic display on the S23 Ultra at this point. And let's open up the Fold 5. Okay, now, it seems bigger, it is bigger. But when you actually start placing it on top of each other, yeah, it's bigger. Is it big enough to warrant the change in usage patterns you're going to have between these two devices? Content is still going to look great on your S23 Ultra. Nice big display. That's not going to be a problem. Web browsing, apps. I love the wider form factor on the S23 Ultra. So that's not something that you're going to pick up. Plus, you got to think about it realistically. I would say maybe it's 50-50 on the outer display versus the inner display on the Z Fold 5. Maybe that skews a little bit, that I use the internal display a little bit more. But understand, you're using that big, wide, fantastic, gorgeous display with lots of room 100% of the time on the S23 Ultra. Are you willing to give up that little bit of usability on the outer display of the Fold 5? It's not unusable. I've seen a lot of that around. That's floating around YouTube today. That's floating around Twitter. People coming up with these ridiculous statements saying the outer display on the Fold 5 is unusable. That's probably in comparison to the Pixel Fold. I disagree with it either way. It's smaller, yes. Does it take some getting used to? Yes. Is it a little bit of an adjustment there typing at first? Absolutely. Is it a waste of time? Is it something that you wouldn't use or it's unusable? No. But you can see the difference here. So know that 50% of the time or 40% of the time or whatever percentage you come up with, this is the display as opposed to what you're using here. So you have to do that math. You have to do that calculus for yourself. Is the extra real estate you get on the inside and the multitasking worth that trade-off of using this display 100% of the time? The other thing is multitasking. I kind of cheat a little bit. I use the widget as multitasking more on my S23 Ultra. You see that screen, I won't show it because I don't know what it has on it. But there's email up here, OneNote down here, and you can do similar things on the Fold 5, but that's kind of how I get around that extra screen real estate on the S23 Ultra. And the other thing is the versatility of the cameras. I've showed you pictures from the Fold 5 before. Excellent. 50 megapixel sensor. They upgraded the camera on the Z Fold 5, but a lot of people are saying it's still not the same as the S23 Ultra, and they're technically correct because you're not getting the versatility of that optical zoom. You got the 10x optical on the back here. You got the extra lenses for depth. You got the laser. You got a lot of stuff going on here to make the photos that much better on the S23 Ultra versus the Fold 5. It's not a knockout. It's not something that you won't even want to look at the Z Fold 5 photos. But if you're looking for that top of the line Samsung One UI photo experience, that's going to be the S23 Ultra versus something like the Z Fold 5. Now, battery life, it's going to be a little bit better on the S23 Ultra. A little bit better. Not crazy. About a half-hour difference between these two devices, I think. Maybe an hour on different days, depending on the Wi-Fi 5G split. The S23 Ultra coming out ahead, so that's something to consider. Build quality, of course, is going to be the same. Software support, excellent on both. You're going to get a little bit more just because of the time difference and the release difference on the Z Fold 5. But both have excellent software experiences tailored to each machine. So you've got the wonderful, it's not Android 12 anymore, but the L experience on the Z Fold 5 with a heavily modified One UI on top of it to give it that extra multitasking, app pairs, all the rest of it. And then you have the great just One UI 5.1 stock experience on the S23 Ultra. Running the August patch, no problems whatsoever. Beautiful device, build quality is the same. It's really just, don't be tempted necessarily by the Z Fold 5. It's an excellent experience. I love opening this up and going to town, especially, like I said, if you're into content creation, if you're running a small business, if you're running whatever business for your job, to have a spreadsheet out here, to have your email spread out here, to be able to open this up. But there are some downsides to that. This is a kind of a softer inner display experience. It's more fragile if you drop it. Samsung customer support is not the best, so you are taking chances. They've gotten a lot better. The hinges are better than they used to be. The displays internally are stronger than they used to be. But there's still some cracking. There's still some things. Cold temperatures, extreme temperatures outside. I know a lot of people, when I did my Fold 5 video, are saying, well, I work construction, I work HVAC, and these devices aren't practical for me. Take that stuff into account. Do you work outdoors? Do you work in the cold? Do you work at a coastal environment, construction environment? All these reasons are things why you'd want to avoid something like the Z Fold 5 and pick up an S23 Ultra that's still excellent, and you're saving yourself $600 in the process. So don't want to discourage anybody. Z Fold 5 is excellent. My favorite Fold. Every time I put my SIM in it, and this is from the 4 onto the 5, I love the experience, and it is hard. The tears in my eyes every time I take my SIM back out of the Z Fold 5 because it's that great of an experience. But you are limiting yourself a little bit on the outer display. You're limiting yourself a little bit on the versatility and the durability of the device. And of course, you're paying a heck of a lot more. So just be honest with yourself. Don't want to discourage you from either one. Just understand the differences, understand the use cases for both of them, and make the smart decision for you. Are you somebody that, I know it's a little bit boring, but if you're in those environments, if like I said, you're working, school, whatever, back and forth, and you need something that's going to be durable, and it's going to last you, it's a little bit cheaper, the S23 Ultra, no one's going to be shaking their head at that decision. But a little bit more adventurous, you're tired of slabs, you know what you're getting into, you know it's not perfect, you know there's some downsides to it, and there's some subtractions you're going to have to make from something like the S23 Ultra. Well then, I highly recommend taking a chance on a Z Fold 5. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.